You finally earn a high salary, but your bank account still feels empty. What if the real problem isn't how much you earn, but how the system quietly turns higher income into higher expenses? A strange thing happens when people start earning more money. On paper, everything should improve. Higher salary, better lifestyle, more comfort. But for millions of people across the United States and Europe, something else happens instead. Their income increases, yet their financial stress stays exactly the same. Or sometimes it actually gets worse. So the real question is this: if someone earns $80,000, $100,000, or even $120,000 a year, why do so many of them still feel financially stuck? To understand this, imagine a very normal situation. Let's say someone graduates from college in the US or Europe and lands their first professional job. Their salary is $75,000 a year. Sounds solid, but after taxes, healthcare, and deductions, that income might become roughly $4,300 per month in actual take-home pay. Now, life begins. Rent in many cities easily reaches $1,800 to $2,200. Add utilities and internet, another $200. Then comes transportation. Maybe a car payment, $450 per month. Insurance, $150. Fuel, $120. Already we're close to $3,000 per month, and we haven't even talked about food yet. Groceries and basic living expenses might add another $500 to $600. Now we're sitting around $3,600 per month. Still manageable. But here's where something subtle begins to happen. Lifestyle quietly expands. Maybe the apartment is slightly nicer than necessary. The car is slightly newer than needed. Eating out happens a little more often than planned. Then come the hidden payments. Student loans, $300 to $500 per month. A few subscriptions. A credit card balance that carries forward. Suddenly, the monthly spending reaches $4,200. And remember, take-home income was $4,300. So despite earning what many people consider a good salary, the financial margin is barely $100. This is the salary illusion. From the outside, the income looks impressive, but the actual financial position is fragile. Now here's the interesting part. Most people don't consciously decide to create the situation. It happens slowly, because humans naturally adapt to income increases. Psychologists call this lifestyle adaptation. When income rises, expectations quietly rise with it. A slightly better neighborhood, a slightly better car, slightly better restaurants. None of these choices feel irresponsible in the moment. Each one feels reasonable, even deserved. But the math doesn't care about feelings. Let's take a simple example. Two people earn the same $90,000 salary. Person A increases their lifestyle every time their income rises. Their expenses grow to $4,800 per month. Person B keeps their lifestyle closer to $3,500 per month. The difference between them is $1,300 every month. That's $15,600 per year. Invested conservatively over 20 years, that difference alone could grow to hundreds of thousands of dollars. Same salary, completely different financial future. This is why higher income doesn't automatically produce wealth. Income creates potential, but lifestyle determines outcome. And the system around us quietly encourages the opposite behavior. Car dealerships advertise monthly payments, not full prices. Credit cards normalize borrowing. Housing markets reward stretching budgets to the maximum loan approval. Every part of the modern financial system makes spending feel normal and saving feel optional. So people do exactly what the system encourages. They upgrade their lives as their income rises. But wealth works differently. Financially intelligent people don't necessarily earn dramatically more money. What they do differently is surprisingly simple. They create distance between income and lifestyle. Not in extreme ways, not through deprivation, just through restraint. When income increases, they allow some lifestyle improvement, but not all of it. That leftover space becomes savings, investments, emergency buffers. And over time, that space quietly compounds. While others feel trapped by their income level, they slowly build financial stability. No dramatic sacrifices, no overnight wealth, just small margins that grow larger every year. Because wealth isn't really built through income alone. It's built through the gap between what you earn and what you spend, and that gap often matters more than the salary itself, which is why two people can live on the same street, drive similar cars, and earn similar salaries, but have completely different financial futures. One is maintaining a lifestyle, the other is quietly building freedom, and from the outside, they look exactly the same. There's a moment many people quietly look forward to. The moment when the salary finally becomes comfortable. Maybe it's $70,000, maybe $90,000, maybe crossing that symbolic six-figure income. At that point, life is supposed to feel easier. Bills should feel lighter, savings should grow faster, financial stress should slowly disappear. But for many middle-class professionals across the United States and Europe, something strange happens instead. They reach those income levels, and yet their financial situation barely changes. The paycheck is larger, but the pressure feels exactly the same, sometimes even heavier. So the uncomfortable question is this: if income keeps rising, why doesn't wealth rise with it? To understand the answer, it helps to look at a very normal life path. Imagine someone in their late 20s living in a city like Chicago, London, Toronto, or Berlin. They have a stable professional job. Their salary is $95,000 a year. On paper, that sounds strong. But after income taxes, Social Security, healthcare deductions, and retirement contributions, the monthly take-home pay might land somewhere around $5,200 per month. Now let's look at what life costs. Rent for a modest one-bedroom apartment in many major cities can easily reach $2,100. Utilities, internet, and phone add another $250. Transportation comes next. If the person owns a car, the payment might be $480 per month. Insurance could be $160. Fuel might average $120. That brings transportation close to $760 per month. So before food, entertainment, or debt payments, monthly spending is already around $3,110. Next comes groceries and basic living expenses. Food, household items, and occasional meals out might average $650 per month. Now the total reaches roughly $3,760, still manageable. But this is where modern financial life becomes complicated, because many professionals are also carrying past financial decisions. Student loans might require $400 per month. A credit card balance might require $150 in minimum payments. Subscriptions, streaming services, gym memberships, software tools, another $120. Now the monthly spending climbs to about $4,430 out of $5,200 take-home income, which leaves about $770 per month. At first glance, that sounds like a healthy margin, but life rarely stays perfectly stable. Unexpected medical costs appear, travel happens, friends get married, a new phone gets purchased, the car needs repairs. Within a few months, that $770 margin quietly disappears, and the person earning $95,000 a year finds themselves living almost paycheck to paycheck. Not because they're irresponsible, but because modern financial life slowly absorbs income. This is the core of the salary illusion. Higher income feels like financial progress, but if expenses expand alongside it, the underlying situation stays the same. What's interesting is that this pattern happens even faster when income increases again. Imagine that same person receives a promotion. Their salary jumps from $95,000 to $120,000. That sounds like a major financial step forward. But after taxes, the take-home pay might increase by about $1,200 per month. Now here's the quiet shift that often follows. The apartment gets upgraded. Rent moves from $2,100 to $2,800. The car gets replaced with something newer. Payments increase from $480 to $720. Dining out becomes more frequent. Travel becomes slightly more comfortable. Individually, these changes feel small, but together they absorb nearly the entire salary increase. So even with a $25,000 raise, financial freedom barely improves. And this isn't just a personal habit, it's a psychological response. Humans naturally adjust their expectations to their environment. When income rises, the brain quickly redefines what feels normal. The smaller apartment starts to feel cramped. The older car begins to feel outdated. The occasional restaurant becomes the weekly routine. None of this feels extravagant. It just feels like life moving forward. But financially, it creates a treadmill. Income rises, expenses follow, and the financial gap never widens. Now compare this to someone who approaches income differently. Imagine another professional earning the exact same $120,000 salary, but instead of expanding every part of their lifestyle, they make only selective upgrades. Maybe they keep their rent close to $2,100. Maybe they drive a reliable used car with no payment. Maybe lifestyle upgrades happen slowly, not instantly. Their total monthly spending might stay around $3,800. With a $6,400 take-home income, that leaves $2,600 per month available. That difference, roughly $31,000 per year, becomes the real engine of wealth, not the salary itself, but the margin around it. Over time, that margin can fund retirement accounts, investments, and financial security. And after 10 or 15 years, the financial difference between these two people becomes enormous. Yet from the outside, their lives may look very similar. Both have professional careers, both live in good neighborhoods, both appear financially comfortable, but one is quietly building assets, the other is simply maintaining a lifestyle. And the modern economy often blurs that difference. Social media rarely shows financial margins. It shows visible consumption, vacations, apartments, cars, experiences. So many people unconsciously measure progress through visible upgrades. But wealth is usually invisible. It sits in investment accounts, retirement funds, home equity, quiet financial buffers. It rarely attracts attention, and it often looks boring. Which is why the salary illusion persists, because higher income feels like success, but wealth is built through something far less dramatic: consistency, small financial gaps maintained over many years, a few $100s saved every month, a lifestyle that grows slightly slower than income. No dramatic shortcuts, no sudden breakthroughs, just time and discipline working quietly together. And eventually, that quiet difference becomes something powerful. Not necessarily luxury, but something far more valuable: options. The option to change jobs without panic. The option to take time off when needed. The option to step away from financial pressure. And those options rarely come from income alone. They come from the gap that income leaves behind. The gap that most people unintentionally close. Instead of asking, how financially stable am I becoming? Many people begin asking a very different question. Does my lifestyle match my income? And that small shift in thinking changes everything. Imagine two coworkers who start at the same company in their late 20s. Both earn $80,000 a year. Both live in the same city. Both graduate with similar student debt. In the beginning, their financial lives look almost identical. They rent similar apartments. They drive similar cars. They spend similar amounts on daily life. But over the next 10 years, something subtle begins to separate them. Not their income, their interpretation of income. One of them treats every raise as permission to upgrade life. A bigger apartment, a better car, more expensive vacations, nicer furniture. None of these decisions are reckless on their own. They simply reflect what society quietly encourages. Success should be visible. If income increases, lifestyle should rise with it. Otherwise, what was the point of working harder? The other coworker thinks about income slightly differently. When their salary rises, they allow some improvement in lifestyle, but not all of it. If their income increases by $1,500 per month, they might allow $500 of lifestyle improvement. The remaining $1,000 quietly moves somewhere else: investments, retirement accounts, emergency savings. Slowly, month by month, their financial foundation becomes stronger. And this is where time begins to create dramatic differences, because money saved early behaves differently than money saved later. Imagine someone invests $1,000 per month starting at age 30. Assuming modest long-term market returns, that money could grow into hundreds of thousands of dollars by their mid-40s. By their mid-50s, it may cross into the million-dollar range. Not through aggressive trading, not through financial tricks, just through consistency and time. Meanwhile, the person who upgraded their lifestyle every time income increased might still be earning an excellent salary, perhaps even higher, but their monthly margin remains small. Their financial progress becomes dependent on continuing to work at the same pace. This is one of the quiet realities of modern middle-class life. High income often creates the appearance of financial security, but without financial margins, that security can disappear quickly. A job loss, a recession, a health issue. Suddenly, the expensive lifestyle that once symbolized success becomes a financial burden. Mortgage payments still arrive, car payments continue, credit cards still demand minimum balances, and the financial flexibility that could have softened the shock simply isn't there. This is why many people earning six figures still feel financially vulnerable. Their income is high, but their financial structure is fragile. Now compare that to someone whose lifestyle remained slightly below their income level. They built a cash buffer. They accumulated investments. They avoided maximizing every loan they qualified for. If their income temporarily disappears, their financial life doesn't collapse overnight. They have time. And time is one of the most powerful financial assets anyone can have, because time allows better decisions. Without time, people make desperate decisions, selling investments too early, taking on high-interest debt, accepting unhealthy job situations just to maintain cash flow. But with time, people regain control. They search for better opportunities. They recover from setbacks. They adjust their lives calmly instead of reactively. This is the quiet purpose of wealth. Not luxury, not status, but stability. Unfortunately, stability rarely feels exciting in the moment. Driving the same reliable car for several years doesn't feel impressive. Living slightly below your maximum housing budget doesn't attract attention. Investing money quietly every month doesn't produce immediate rewards. But over 10 or 20 years, these decisions compound into something most people underestimate: freedom from constant financial pressure. And interestingly, many financially secure people still live lives that appear ordinary. Their homes are comfortable but not extravagant. Their cars are practical. Their spending habits are thoughtful. From the outside, they may look very similar to their neighbors, but internally, their financial lives operate very differently, because their income created space, not just lifestyle, and that space gradually transformed into assets. Assets that work quietly in the background, assets that eventually produce income on their own. At that point, the relationship with work changes. Work becomes a choice rather than a survival requirement. Not necessarily early retirement, but flexibility. And flexibility is often the real goal people were chasing all along. They thought higher income would deliver it, but income alone rarely does. The salary illusion convinces people that earning more automatically creates financial progress. In reality, income only creates opportunity. The real progress happens in the decisions that follow. The decisions about how much of that income becomes lifestyle and how much quietly becomes future stability. Because wealth is rarely the result of one dramatic financial move. More often, it's the result of small financial gaps repeated for decades. Gaps most people close without realizing it. And the people who keep those gaps open long enough often discover something surprising later in life. The income they once depended on becomes less important because their past decisions quietly built a system that now supports them. Not instantly, not dramatically, but steadily. And that steady progress is usually invisible from the outside, which is why the salary illusion continues to confuse so many people. Higher income can absolutely improve life, but only if lifestyle grows slower than income itself. Otherwise, the number on the paycheck rises, while financial freedom stays exactly where it was. There's another layer to the salary illusion that most people don't notice until much later in life. It's not just that expenses rise with income. It's that higher income often unlocks access to larger financial commitments. Banks approve bigger mortgages. Dealerships offer more expensive cars. Credit card limits increase. Suddenly, the financial system treats you as someone capable of handling larger obligations. And technically, that's true. But capacity and wisdom are not always the same thing. Imagine someone earning $130,000 a year. When they apply for a mortgage, the bank might approve a loan large enough to purchase a $650,000 home. From the lender's perspective, the numbers work. The borrower's income supports the monthly payment. But what the bank doesn't evaluate is the long-term lifestyle pressure that comes with that decision. A mortgage payment might reach $3,200 per month. Add property taxes, insurance, and maintenance, and housing costs might climb closer to $3,800. For someone taking home around $7,000 per month after taxes, that single decision now absorbs more than half their income. And once that structure exists, everything else must adapt around it. Travel becomes limited, savings slow down, financial flexibility shrinks. But from the outside, the homeowner appears successful. Nice house, good neighborhood, stable career. Yet internally, their financial life may feel tighter than ever. This is why higher income sometimes increases financial stress instead of reducing it. Because higher income expands financial possibilities, but it also expands financial expectations. Friends upgrade their homes, colleagues lease newer cars, coworkers take expensive vacations, and slowly social comparison begins influencing financial decisions. This happens quietly, rarely through direct pressure, more often through observation. People naturally calibrate their lifestyle based on the environment around them. If everyone in the office drives luxury vehicles, driving a modest car starts to feel unusual. If coworkers discuss expensive vacations, staying local begins to feel like falling behind. This is not irrational behavior. It's basic human psychology. Humans are social creatures. We constantly evaluate our position within our group. And modern life exposes us to more comparison than ever before. Not just coworkers and neighbors, but social media feeds filled with curated moments of other people's lives. A weekend trip in Paris, a new apartment in Manhattan, a luxury SUV parked in front of a beautiful house. These images create a subtle narrative about what success should look like. But the financial reality behind those images is rarely visible. The monthly payments, the debt balances, the financial pressure, all of that remains hidden. Which is why many people unknowingly build lifestyles that are optimized for appearance rather than stability. And the salary illusion feeds directly into this cycle, because higher income makes those lifestyles seem achievable, at least in the short term. But wealth operates on a completely different timeline. Wealth is slow. It accumulates quietly through years of consistent financial behavior. And ironically, many wealthy individuals live lives that appear surprisingly ordinary. Their homes may be comfortable but not oversized. Their cars may be reliable but not brand new every few years. Their spending choices often reflect long-term thinking rather than short-term display. From the outside, they may not appear dramatically different from their peers, but financially their position is far more secure. Because they protected something most people unintentionally lose as income rises: financial breathing room. That breathing room might look like an extra $1,000 or $2,000 saved every month. At first, that margin doesn't feel transformative, but over 15 or 20 years, it becomes powerful. Investments compound, debt disappears, financial obligations shrink relative to assets. Eventually, the person who once depended entirely on their salary begins to notice something interesting. Their investments are now generating income, maybe not enough to replace their job completely, but enough to reduce dependence, enough to create choices. And that's when the salary illusion finally breaks. Because the person realizes something important. Their financial security didn't come from their highest salary year. It came from the years when they spent less than they could have. The quiet decisions, the modest lifestyle choices, the patience to allow money to compound instead of immediately converting it into consumption. None of those choices looked dramatic at the time, but together they created something that higher income alone could not. A financial life that becomes gradually easier instead of gradually heavier. And perhaps that's the most important distinction of all. The salary illusion tells people that success means constantly upgrading life as income rises. But financially intelligent people think about success differently. They don't just ask, "Can I afford this?" They also ask a quieter question: what does this decision do to my future flexibility? Because every financial choice either expands freedom or quietly reduces it. Higher income creates many opportunities, but without careful thinking, it also creates many traps. And the difference between the two is rarely determined by the paycheck itself. It's determined by how much of that paycheck is allowed to quietly become future stability.
It's the assumption that income will always be there. When someone is in their late 20s or early 30s, their career usually feels stable. Promotions seem possible, skills are improving, the future feels predictable. So long-term financial commitments start to feel safe. A larger mortgage doesn't seem risky. A luxury car payment seems manageable. A slightly more expensive lifestyle feels justified. After all, income will probably continue rising, right? But careers rarely move in perfectly straight lines. Industries change. Companies restructure. Economic downturns appear without warning. Sometimes entire job markets shift in ways people never expected. A professional who was once earning $120,000 a year may suddenly face layoffs, industry contraction, or automation pressures. And if their entire financial life was structured around that income continuing indefinitely, the adjustment becomes painful. This is another reason why wealth and income are fundamentally different things. Income is temporary. Wealth is stored stability. Income depends on external factors: employers, markets, industries, health, economic cycles. Wealth, once built, becomes independent of those factors. It sits quietly in the background, waiting to support future needs. And the interesting thing is that wealth rarely requires extreme income levels to begin forming. What it requires is time and margin. For example, imagine someone earning $85,000 per year who consistently invests $800 per month starting at age 30. At first, those contributions may feel small relative to their income, but over 25 years, assuming steady market growth, those investments can accumulate into a portfolio worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. That portfolio then begins producing income on its own: dividends, interest, capital appreciation. Slowly, the person's financial life becomes less dependent on their job. Now imagine someone else earning $140,000 per year, but saving almost nothing because their lifestyle absorbs nearly everything they earn. From the outside, they appear more successful: higher salary, better house, more visible consumption. But financially, they may be far more vulnerable. If their income stops, their lifestyle cannot continue for long. The person earning less may actually possess more financial security because they built something income alone cannot provide: assets. This is one of the most misunderstood ideas in personal finance. People often believe wealth begins at a specific income level. They imagine that once someone earns $150,000 or $200,000 per year, financial freedom naturally follows. But in reality, many people earning those incomes still experience constant financial pressure, not because their salary is insufficient, but because their lifestyle grew at exactly the same speed. The salary illusion quietly convinced them that higher income meant higher spending capacity, instead of higher saving capacity. Financially intelligent people think about income slightly differently. When their salary increases, they see two choices. They can increase lifestyle, or they can increase financial independence. Most people choose the first option automatically, but those who prioritize the second option eventually reach a very different stage of life, a stage where their income is no longer the center of their financial world. Their investments begin contributing meaningful support. Their expenses represent a smaller percentage of their resources. Their financial life becomes less fragile. And with that stability comes something surprisingly powerful: calm. Money stops being a constant source of background stress. Decisions become easier. Career choices become less urgent. Life becomes less about maintaining income and more about choosing how to spend time. And interestingly, this transformation rarely looks dramatic from the outside. It doesn't require extreme frugality. It doesn't require avoiding every luxury. It simply requires something that modern culture rarely encourages: allowing income to grow faster than lifestyle, keeping some distance between the two, because that distance, repeated year after year, slowly turns income into wealth. And once wealth begins supporting life, the relationship with money changes completely. The paycheck is no longer the only thing holding everything together. The system you quietly built over time begins doing part of the work for you. Which means the real value of income was never the lifestyle it could immediately buy. The real value was the future stability it could create. The salary illusion hides that truth by focusing attention on visible upgrades: bigger homes, nicer cars, more expensive experiences. But the most powerful financial progress is usually invisible. It grows slowly in retirement accounts, investment portfolios, savings buffers, assets that most people never see. And perhaps that's why the difference between income and wealth remains confusing for so many people. Income is loud. Wealth is quiet. Income appears on paychecks. Wealth accumulates in the background. Income can rise quickly.
Wealth grows slowly, but over long periods of time, the quiet growth often becomes far more powerful than the loud income that created it. And once someone understands that difference, the salary illusion begins to fade. Higher income is still valuable, it can absolutely improve life, but only when part of that income is allowed to escape the cycle of lifestyle expansion. Only when some of it is quietly preserved for the future. Because wealth is rarely the result of dramatic financial breakthroughs. More often, it's the result of small financial gaps maintained over many years, gaps that eventually grow wide enough to change the entire structure of someone's financial life. A strange thing happens when people start earning more money. On paper, everything should improve. Higher salary, better lifestyle, more comfort. But for millions of people across the United States and Europe, something else happens instead. Their income increases, yet their financial stress stays exactly the same. Or sometimes, it actually gets worse. So the real question is this. If someone earns $80,000, $100,000, or even $120,000 a year, why do so many of them still feel financially stuck? To understand this, imagine a very normal situation. Let's say someone graduates from college in the US or Europe and lands their first professional job. Their salary is $75,000 a year. Sounds solid. But after taxes, healthcare, and deductions, that income might become roughly $4,300 per month in actual take-home pay. Now, life begins. Rent in many cities easily reaches $1,800 to $2,200. Add utilities and internet, another $200. Then comes transportation. Maybe a car payment, $450 per month. Insurance, $150. Fuel, $120. Already we're close to $3,000 per month, and we haven't even talked about food yet. Groceries and basic living expenses might add another $500 to $600. Now we're sitting around $3,600 per month. Still manageable. But here's where something subtle begins to happen. Lifestyle quietly expands. Maybe the apartment is slightly nicer than necessary. The car is slightly newer than needed. Eating out happens a little more often than planned. Then come the hidden payments. Student loans, $300 to $500 per month. A few subscriptions. A credit card balance that carries forward. Suddenly, the monthly spending reaches $4,200. And remember, take-home income was $4,300. So despite earning what many people consider a good salary, the financial margin is barely $100. This is the salary illusion. From the outside, the income looks impressive, but the actual financial position is fragile. Now here's the interesting part. Most people don't consciously decide to create the situation. It happens slowly, because humans naturally adapt to income increases. Psychologists call this lifestyle adaptation. When income rises, expectations quietly rise with it. A slightly better neighborhood, a slightly better car, slightly better restaurants. None of these choices feel irresponsible in the moment. Each one feels reasonable, even deserved. But the math doesn't care about feelings. Let's take a simple example. Two people earn the same $90,000 salary. Person A increases their lifestyle every time their income rises. Their expenses grow to $4,800 per month. Person B keeps their lifestyle closer to $3,500 per month. The difference between them is $1,300 every month. That's $15,600 per year. Invested conservatively over 20 years, that difference alone could grow to hundreds of thousands of dollars. Same salary, completely different financial future. This is why higher income doesn't automatically produce wealth. Income creates potential, but lifestyle determines outcome. And the system around us quietly encourages the opposite behavior. Car dealerships advertise monthly payments, not full prices. Credit cards normalize borrowing. Housing markets reward stretching budgets to the maximum loan approval. Every part of the modern financial system makes spending feel normal and saving feel optional. So people do exactly what the system encourages. They upgrade their lives as their income rises. But wealth works differently. Financially intelligent people don't necessarily earn dramatically more money. What they do differently is surprisingly simple. They create distance between income and lifestyle. Not in extreme ways, not through deprivation, just through restraint. When income increases, they allow some lifestyle improvement, but not all of it. That leftover space becomes savings, investments, emergency buffers, and over time, that space quietly compounds. While others feel trapped by their income level, they slowly build financial stability. No dramatic sacrifices, no overnight wealth, just small margins that grow larger every year. Because wealth isn't really built through income alone. It's built through the gap between what you earn and what you spend. And that gap often matters more than the salary itself. Which is why two people can live on the same street, drive similar cars, and earn similar salaries, but have completely different financial futures. One is maintaining a lifestyle. The other is quietly building freedom. And from the outside, they look exactly the same.